All right, everybody, welcome to an episode of the Tiger Miley Report, Motor City Metrics Clash thing here on TigersMLReport.com. I'm Real Hill Castillo, alongside me is Chris Brown and Uper, and you can find us on Apple Podcast, Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcast. And so we're going to keep this show rather brief because we podcasted last night, podcasted Sunday, but I'm going to there's going to be some venting of the fans here, so there's going to be a lot of that. So if you want to vent, please do so. And if you'd like to donate to the website, all that goes back into what we do. The donation link is on the bottom. I actually want to put that in the chat too as well. There is just a lot to unpack here at this trade deadline. A lot of things. We can start with the press conference. We can start with the trades. Let's start with the trades because the press conference had some interesting comments that I mean, if you're a Tigers fan right now, I'm sure you're going. I mean, Twitter. Yeah, Dan Fernandez is spot on. Twitter's going wild. Twitter is having a meltdown, and rightfully so in some cases. So, but we'll get to the questions. I promise. Like I said, if you want to super chat us a question, please do so as well. But right now, I just want to get to. Let's start with the trade breakdown here. The first trade of the day started with the Texas Rangers. Again, as the Tigers traded Andrew Chafin for a pair of prospects in a pitcher by the name of Joseph. Let's see here. I have a list to this here. All of a sudden, it's gone. List. Was how you say his last name, Chris?
Monsalvis?
Monsalvis? Okay.
Monsalvo, I believe. Yeah.
Monsalvo? Okay.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah. Monsalvo.
Monsalvo.
The seed maker.
The seed maker.
Oh, sorry. That's Monsanto, yes. Ron Santo, Hall of Famer.
And
saved.
and right-hander Chase Lee. And then the second trade of the day, the one that everybody was looking forward to, was Flaherty to the Dodgers in exchange for shortstop Trey Sweeney and catcher Adrian Lizarano, who's at high A. Trade. We'll break down the players here in a second. And then the last trade of the day was Mark Cannon to the Giants for a right-hander by the name of Eric Sylvia. So you look at again, we're going to also take out the fact that prospect list here. So it's going to be, you're going to look at, everybody's going to look at MLB Pipeline, but if you want a true identity, a true way of looking at it, Baseball America does an update. Mid-season update. I believe Pipeline does not.
Yeah, my Pipeline does it right after the draft, I think.
No, yeah, Pipeline they have their updated top 30s coming out soon after the trade deadline. Baseball America tries to do it before the trade deadline so that you have a better idea of the actual, level of these prospects right now. I mean, yeah, we start with like the 10,000-foot view, right? That no top 100 Baseball America prospect was traded this year. I think there's a good chance. Baseball America has been keeping track of all the prospects that are traded, but they haven't updated it from what I can tell. But I think there's a good chance that Lorenzo ends up as the highest rated prospect moved at the deadline, which, I know that there's a lot of, naysaying or whatever worries about him hitting for a low batting average in high A. And there are some concerns with him, but it's a pretty giant ceiling there too. And I don't know, I think I'm with Raj here where, we just kept hearing all these, and we were taking part in this, going back a week or two, the trade rumors start. And so you start throwing out like some fake trades and then all the rumors come, but they're all garbage rumors. Like, hey, this team could be with that team. These teams operate in the same universe. They might be a good fit. And so it gets a little frustrating. And then, and again, we've been kind of, maybe participating in this too. Maybe we set expectations a little too high for, saying like, oh, maybe the Dodgers will give up Dalton Rushing or whatever. We had the team right, had the position right, not the right player, but again, like nobody got a top 100 prospect, or at least nobody who was ranked as top 100 prospect. Some of these guys will go on to be great players. It's just a matter of waiting to see which ones are the ones that do it.
And that's, Uper, I'll let you get into it. Uper, Mike, how's your voice, by the way, Mike?
I got some opinions, but if I sound terrible, I'll step away.
Safer strength there. Uper, I'll start with you. What was your initial reactions?
Well, the whole thing, once it became rather obvious that the odds of trading Tarek Skubal were under probably 2% at earlier this week, I think, to be honest, expectations had to be a little bit muted. I know there was one kind of outlier trade for Kikuchi and Houston, and a lot of people thought, boy, they really paid a lot to get him. But let's say that was a mistake on Houston's part to give up all of that for Kikuchi, right? Are you really going to expect some other GM to copy that? I think that was asking a lot. I think the Tigers did pretty well to get, the number 3 guy on the Dodgers list, on Baseball America's list. Now, these lists aren't everything. We all know that, but it gives some people who really, like yourselves, you guys do it too, people who really study this and take the time to appreciate what these players are. Baseball America does that, and he's the number 3 guy in that system. I thought the Monsalvo deal, getting him for Chafin, what he's doing in high A right now as a young kid, definitely worth it for a left-handed reliever out of Detroit who's been kind of up and down at times. So I think overall, my expectations once Skubal was off the table, I think they did okay this week.
Mike?
I mean, they got something for Mark Hanna. I feel like that in itself is just a huge win. When I saw that trade tick by on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, I all of a sudden I got real excited just to get anything for him, honestly. But I've been seeing a lot of what seem to be expert scouts and expert GMs now that always emerge on Twitter at this time.
Oh, that's my favorite. Like my favorite time of year right now is that those expert GMs or somebody who mysteriously are saying they're tying in teams like the Brewers and everything is just out of nowhere.
I feel like this town doesn't want to like Scott Harris. Maybe that's oversimplifying it, but I feel like unless you got the Dodgers' top 4 prospects for Flaherty, they weren't going to say that Scott Harris did a good job. I'm a little frustrated with the perception the way it is, and obviously this is just a small subsect that's very loud on Twitter. I realize that. But I think that Harris did everything he was supposed to do. I've talked about this for weeks. He had to trade Flaherty 100%. There was no question about it. It had to happen. And that happened. And we got something for Chafin, and we got something. And this is and who cares what they turn out to be? I just feel like looking at the trade deadline in a vacuum, regardless of who they got rid of the right players. I think keeping Skubal was the right choice too. And I'm not saying I'm optimistic necessarily because this team frustrates me a lot. I ride them like a roller coaster, but I'm not disappointed in the trade deadline whatsoever. They did what they should do, and I'm happy about that.
Okay. All right. Well, here's where I stand with everything right now as I'm trying to delay. I'm also trying to finish up a graphic that I was trying to do. I've multitasking. Go ahead, Chris.
Well, one of the things, and I think the Kikuchi trade is viewed as like this, this big haul because people had heard of these 2 players or 2 of the players because they'd already been in the big leagues. They got 3 players who are very close to the big leagues. But also they haven't been good in the big leagues. It's not like, they're just as uncertain. They're just a little bit closer. And if you can go to Fangraphs, right, and see their rankings in the trades, Toronto got a 50 future value, a 40 future value, I think, and a 35 plus future value. And the Tigers got a 50 and a 40. So they just didn't get the third throw-in piece. And again, these are all just rankings. We don't know about these players. There's a lot to like. If Lorenzo works out, he's got absolutely rare power potential from a switch hitting catcher. Now, he might not catch, he might not hit. That's what you're getting. But you also are, you got him for 10 starts for Jack Flaherty before he becomes a free agent. Like you weren't, you weren't going to get a certain thing. And then they back him up with a kind of future maybe utility infielder and Trey Sweeney. Sweeney was a first round pick for reasons he just hasn't developed power that they thought he would, and he doesn't look like he's going to stick at shortstop. So, but it's still, I was digging into some of his numbers, and you sent some to me, Raj, and he could still be a useful piece. So I don't know. I think it's a decent return for Flaherty. And in the end, they traded everybody that I thought would get moved, and which was kind of shocking to me. I was prepared for them to it was just going to be Kelly. I'm like, oh, and then because you didn't hear anything about Chafin, there were no rumors out there. And then, and I didn't really think Canna would go either, but they got him, got a decent reliever there. So they added 7 players total to their system.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's a good infusion of depth, and the more chances you get, the more swings you get in the cage, the more likely you're going to make good contact. So,
all right. So after I sat and thought about it for a little bit, and I didn't want to go on air angry or anything like that, be the angry man or pull Ben Verlander. And yeah, I think that what I'm glad about this trade deadline is Ben Verlander can go back to tweeting things that don't matter about the Tigers, because he never, until now, it's just, you want to ride that buzz wave and everything. That's cool. You want to not care about the Tigers again, by all means, cool. Go for it. I don't care. So here's the thing. I don't have a problem with you look at some of the players they got. The haul for Carson Kelly was a lot more than they anticipated. You got either a guy in Owens who could develop with a split finger, or he can just be another reliever in there. Another guy that could just another body, if you will. Liam Hicks, same thing. He has ability to hit. Can he hit for power? No. It's one of those things where for people that automatically write somebody off based off of batting average, I have a problem. They're writing off the catcher from the Dodgers, who they were just like, he's batting 231. And Lorenzo, there is some power to him. There's you have to look at some of the more advanced metrics to it. So I'm not gonna write. How do you know this kid's gonna suck? How do you know, just based off what you see on a box score? I mean, if you look at it that way, Sawyer Gipson Long, he had an ERA over 4 when the Tigers acquired him.
Yeah.
But I trust the development system. However, what I don't, and here's where the thing about the trade deadline where I have a problem with, is Harris. Harris is doubling down. He's just like, look, here's the guys we wanted. I mean, some of the and I had a chance to go to the press conference, but I had to work. I think off work. I mean, this is where sometimes I wish that we had more donations so I could just go do things like this. But unfortunately, I had to work. And right now, the pitching situation, and we'll get to the rotation, who we think we'll get there in a second. But it sounds like over breakfast tomorrow. So over Moon over Miami tomorrow, the Tigers rotation is going to be settled. Or maybe over, I don't know, maybe IHOP, whatever breakfast, it's the IHOP, whatever the case is. But bada boom, bada bing, I agree with you. The issue is necessarily the players they got is seeing the returns that lesser pitchers got. Okay, that's fair. I can understand your gripe with that. But here's where I have a problem: is when you see him go to the media and kind of say, like what you're seeing here. Well, I completely reject when Scott Harris was asked about the less return for Flaherty than Toronto did. His quote, I completely reject the premise. These are the players we got are really good. They had an opportunity to make different deals with different teams. This is a deal we chose for a reason, end quote. I look at that and go, okay, he probably means that and he's probably sincere about it. But at the same time, there's a couple other shortstops. The White Sox got Miguel Vargas. I wanted Miguel Vargas. Miguel Vargas would have been a perfect opportunity to fill your void at third base. It didn't happen. And it's, it's one of those things where you have to wonder what was left on the table. Because when you hear things like, well, he's difficult to deal with, whatever the case is, all hearsay things, that's what makes it frustrating. That's why fans are frustrated. That being said, some of the, again, Hao Lee has been an example. Like some of the things they've gotten in return. They turned Carson Kelly, a guy who was, I think, DFA'd, into 2 prospects. They turned Mark Cannon into a guy in Eric Silva. Yes, his ERA is not good, but he's striking out 51 per 41 innings in Double-A in Richmond. You got, and as far as like getting the Flaherty thing, like I said, I can understand what the frustration. What I like in Dalton Rushing or Dalton rushing? Oh, absolutely. But here's where, and this is what OBK. Thank you for the $4.99. I appreciate it.
Exquisite.
OBK has a point here. AJ Hinch. Imagine being AJ Hinch in the morning. You're gonna have breakfast in the morning. You're just gonna go. All right. This is imagine. I'm gonna use this for imprint. Here. Hey, Scott. Who am I gonna use here? Who did you have? Hold on a second here. Hold on. All right. Lyle Lockhart. Okay. All right. I'll put Brandon Hurd. Okay. Who else? Ryan Sam. Wait. What about the positional player? What about who am I going to put for Canada? Keel Badu. Well, he's got one more option left before. I mean, that's him right now. You're basically saying that the 2024 season, you're just punting on the 2024 season.
Of course they are. Of course they are.
Yeah.
We knew they were going to. That's
Yeah.
not.
Yeah.
If AJ Hinch is upset, it's on him. He re-signed a deal. He knows what he was getting here. He's not, he's not dumb. They could have kept Flaherty, and then they'd have 3 pitchers instead of 2, and they would be doing 2 bullpen days a week. It's just the nature of the season. Like, man, like nobody wanted it to go this way. They didn't want Casey Mize to get hurt, and Reese Olson to get hurt, and Kerry Carpenter to get hurt, and Riley Green to get hurt, and Spencer Torkelson to suck. Like nobody wanted that. It's just the way it went. And they didn't win in May when they needed to, and they had that nice little run a couple weeks ago, and it's just the way it is. And so like it's tank season again, baby, and that's just unfortunately, we'd hoped things would be going smoother and faster and better than this, but this is where they are, and they have to trade it. You could look at it and say, okay, they went out and took a guy that the Orioles got last year and was awful for them, and they went out and fixed him and turned him into 2 solid prospects who could have a future with the team or not. But it's frustrating, I think, for everybody that it's just going to be another lost season. But we already kind of knew that, right? Like we've all been anticipating this. So I people are upset, I guess, that they didn't get the world for Flaherty. But like I said, they got probably the best prospect that was moved at the trade deadline. Like I don't know. I don't know what else you want more. Everybody wants more, but what you got to be realistic.
Well, let me address something Walter said in here. I was talking about AJ Hinch being frustrated, fans being frustrated. I mean, this team we knew. We've talked about this collectively. This team was not going to finish for 500. I'm talking about AJ Hinch. You could see the hints of it. You see, I was going to refer to Casey Mize. He wants to go pitch. He can't. Tigers are like, no, take a powder. You're still not healthy. The frustration on Hinch is, that's what I was referring to. I feel like Hinch is getting frustrated. Yeah. And they are, it's one of those things where, you're right. He didn't, Chris, make a point. Absolutely knew what he was getting into. But it's just, like I said, you see a cool demeanor with him sometimes, but you're seeing kind of like the cracks a little bit. We talked about this yesterday a little bit. Am I imagining that, or am I
think losing wears on everybody.
It's be realistic. I mean, this is what I would tell AJ Hinch. Be realistic. You had your best stretch of baseball for what, 3 weeks before and after the All-Star break? Still 5 games under 500. Like, this team is nothing more than a 500 baseball team. And I don't think it's bad when we've gotten angry at GMs for not punting on seasons in the past. Like this season, I think this season needed to be punted on.
Yeah. Well, once the word sell became pretty much set in place that's what Detroit's fate was going to be, I would hope that AJ Hinch really in his heart knew that these last 55, 60 games after the trade deadline were going to be relatively meaningless in terms of competition, right? They just need to get through it, keep people healthy, and work on a few things and move on to next year. And I'm sure as a manager like him who's been to the mountaintop of the World Series, these few seasons in Detroit can be wearing on you. But, this year, as Chris said, just everything went wrong. I made an above 500 prediction this year on the hope that this would be one of those years where everything went right. Well, so much for that. Everything went wrong. If he's frustrated, I get it, but that's his job. Move on and come back next year.
Yeah, and I think, like I said, I think losing and losing a lot and having to scramble to fill your roster is going to be frustrating to anybody. These are, very competitive, professional athlete type people. They want to win, and it sucks. And, I guess if anybody's frustrated with the returns, I guess you could be frustrated that the best prospect they got isn't closer to the big leagues. If that's what you want, it feels again like, well, then the next year is in question too, because we didn't get that huge contributor for the upcoming season. But I don't know. You can't necessarily force that. And again, the Blue Jays got 3 guys that are close to the big leagues, but who knows what they are? They're not any better than Lorenzo. So I don't know. And we talked about things didn't just go bad at the big league level. They went bad in AAA. It would be nice if Ty Madden hadn't completely imploded, or if Brant Herter didn't have a 5+ ERA, or if Tyler Madison didn't get hurt before the season. It's
Flores.
Wilmer Flores got hurt. It's you build up depth for a reason, but you can only withstand so much. And you see other teams, Tampa is not the great. You don't want to necessarily compare yourself to Tampa because they just tear down all the time, but they've been a good team for a while. And then they just decided they're like, oh, no, that's not working. So let's just trade everybody. They traded their young cost controlled third baseman who's been very good for them just cause they're like, he's getting a little bit expensive.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. It's a tough existence out here in the mid markets, and Tigers fans remember when they spent a lot of money and were good, and it's just it's not there.
I will say this: Steven is dead on about this, and I think he's absolutely correct. It's all Harris like scouting. These moves today are. It was the same thing with the draft. Scouts made that call.
Yeah.
You look at Mark Connor, look at those guys. These guys, they were targeted for a reason. They were targeted. There were guys they were looking at, just based off in the stomping grounds of some of these guys too as well. And so Harris trusts his scouts. I'm sure Harris trusts his staff to go, okay, here's the guys we think go for, and maybe perhaps made a list. And so, because to me, especially look at the way the Rangers, like the Tigers hardly ever. Outside of a few trades here and there with, historically speaking, as we know about the Juan Gonzalez deal and what have you, but it just seemed like they had a specific target in mind each time, in terms of even pitchers too, like just guys who have 1 or 2 really good pitches and there's an uptick in velocity. So case in point, Monteleo has an uptick in velocity. His changeup is another good pitch to add with that. So Eric Sylvia, I don't know about Sylvia's velocity. That's the only one I don't know. But catching wise, the Tigers' catching depth was straight up garbage.
Yeah, we've talked about it a lot, and we often put catchers in in our fake trades, and they got 2 more. The Hicks is probably like an emergency catcher if something goes wrong and they need somebody who can come up and hit a little bit. But yeah, that's the other guy is the Montalvo is a pretty interesting. Just watching them, and that's the thing. Like, you guys can trust that we will now go watch several hours of video on all these guys, and we'll write scouting reports, and we'll put them, in our top 30 where we think they belong, and we're going to update that soon. And we'll give you, better opinions then. But we're, it's just. I looked at one of his starts, and it's a nice athletic operation with 3 pitches. I think, you can kind of project a little bit. He's not a huge guy, but it wouldn't shock me if he develops into a solid number 4 starter down the road, and that's a pretty darn good get for Andrew Chafin.
Look, hey, if Prospects Live's own national talent scout evaluator extraordinary and friend of the show, Ray's signs off on him, then I'm cool with that. Like,
There you go.
That's
Well,
he hits the ball very hard, and he's
Very
a
hard
switch-hitting catcher.
This is always good.
Yes.
So tell me this. Obviously, we know, or we suspect, the Tigers could have given Flaherty a qualifying offer, and if he rejects it, he get the draft pick, and probably somewhere between 31 and 36, right? More or less. That's where that pick would have been.
Probably. I'll let you finish with your premise, and then I'll debunk certain parts of it. Yes.
Do we feel that the 2 players that they've gotten in this deal would be at least what they probably would have gotten somewhere in that range draft wise? I would if they would have drafted a player like this, Lynn Salvo. Would that have been of the value.
Speaking of value, by the way,
What's up?
look at this tweet from Evan just now. The Tigers got, he's talking about Sweeney for Flaherty. Blue Jays got Jake to talk about the trade for Kikuchi.
Mhm.
He says, what if I told you the Tigers could have accepted the Kikuchi return, but Scott Harris passed in search of a better return?
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, that's the thing. He got, what did he want more? Did he want a left-handed hitting outfielder / first baseman to go along with a pitcher and a kind of a utility infielder? Did he want a switch hitting catcher with power? I don't know. It wouldn't shock me if they had that and Scott Harris overplayed his hand. I think we kind of got that feeling last year too. You can feel it, like he seems like he wants to push everything to the very end to try to force other teams' hands, and it's so hard for us to know. Now, I trust Evan, and I'm sure that there are a lot of different things that have been, reported, and a lot of people heard things. And it may be that Scott Harris ended up not taking the best deal that he could get, but he took the deal. And like we said, Lorenzo is a nice prospect. Yoop, your question is interesting, and I've thought about that too. And I'm sure they have lots of, different calculus that goes into this. And yes, if Jack Flaherty, if they had kept him and offered them a qualifying offer and he rejected it, as he almost certainly would, and then goes out and signs a deal for more than $50 million, then they would have gotten a Comp A pick, I believe, or, Comp in the 30 to 35 range. If he didn't get $50 million, if something goes wrong, if he has another back injection, if he, then they might not even give him the qualifying offer, or they would get one. If he gets less than $50 million, then it's a pick in the 70 range. And what's up?
I'm sorry.
But I was just gonna say, like, that pick in the 30-35 is awesome. It's you get the extra bonus pool money, and sometimes it's Kevin McGonigal, which is awesome. You have a top 30, top 50 prospect in baseball the next year, and if you think you can do that every year, then maybe that's worth it. But sometimes it's also, Kristen Stewart. So, yeah,
I thought we were going there.
Yeah. You can't tell, and I'm sure that was something they considered a lot. But all right, sorry, Roger, you were saying.
No, I was gonna say, does everybody? So I was just gonna ask everybody in the chat right now, in the YouTube chat, or watch us on Twitter. Would you like to watch what Scott Harris said?
Sure, I would like to, because I didn't see it.
So, yes. So I have the link courtesy of Valley Sports Detroit, and let's see here. We'll do my little thing here. And let's find it. Here we go.
Well, thank you everyone for being here. I know it's late, and I know we had an earlier game today. Happy to take any questions you have, but before I do, I just want to share, from my seat, I think this has been a very productive month when it comes to one of our goals, which is to acquire, develop, and retain young talent. It started at the beginning of the month with a young lineup showing flashes of the offense that we can be in the future leading into the break. Then we entered the break with the best win percentage that we've had since 2016. Then during the break, we added very significant young talent to this organization, highlighted by Bryce Rayner in the draft. And then after the draft, we got hard at work preparing for the trade deadline, and we feel like we added a haul of young talent at this deadline that is going to help us win a lot of games on that field moving forward. Like, that's the goal for us, to win a lot of games on the field there. And I feel like a lot of the players that we added to this organization and that we helped develop in this organization over the last month are really going to help us do that moving forward. But before I take any questions, I want to start by thanking Jack, Mark, Carson, and Chafin. Those guys were tremendous influences on our young players throughout this year. One of our goals was to try to give young players opportunity, but they need examples. Like, they need to learn how to be pros. They need to learn how to put together major league quality at bats and bullpen sessions and routines that can help them be successful at this level. And those four guys were excellent examples. They were excellent influences on our young guys, and they were first class, players and people here for the duration of their time. I like all four of those guys, and I told each of them that I was really bummed that we had to trade them at the deadline, but I feel like they are going to continue to help this organization by giving us access to young players that are going to help us win a lot of games in the future. So happy to take any questions you guys have.
Scott, can you just help us understand how the Flaherty trade went down from your perspective and how you feel about that return?
Yeah. I will start by saying, specifically with Jack, he as an individual deserves a ton of credit for what he has become as a pitcher. At my opening press conference, I talked about wanting to be a place where players know that they can come and get better. There is no better example than Jack Flaherty. He came here after a rough year last year. He put his head down and he got to work immediately. We feel like we have a lot of guys in that clubhouse that really helped him along the way, but he's the one that put in all the work and became the player that he is right now. He's one of the best pitchers in all of baseball right now. And we're really proud of our ability as an organization to work together to help create an environment in which that can happen. When I reflect on this trade, that's the first thing I think of is when we signed Jack Flaherty, most people around this organization and around baseball didn't really expect him to be the pitcher that he is today. And so the fact that he came into this organization, got a whole lot better, demonstrated he can be one of the best pitchers in all of baseball, and he's leaving this organization better than he entered it is a great sign of health, a great sign of progress for this organization. Moving forward, that ability that we are demonstrating to help players get better in this organization is going to help us win a lot of games. We're not there as an organization yet, but the ability to grab a player like Jack Flaherty, help him become the player that he is right now, and then retain.
All right, I just want to stop right there so we can take a little bit of a ponder what he said. I will say there's a couple things to just look at here. I think that Harris is focused on the future. I really think that, we just talked about that now, but yes, he is correct. Flaherty got better here. But that's a comment there from David Fly. Avila left the wasteland. Scott Harris might look good in a quarter zip, but he isn't Jesus, Gandalf, or Doctor Strange. It's going to be a process. At least he's got a plan. And he's right. He's been consistent in his messaging about the plan. And to some people, it is disingenuous. Some people is fake. But, it's, also what we hear sometimes too is that he doesn't meet with the beat writers regularly and rubs people the wrong way a little bit.
There's another tweet from Evan where he says, what if I told you that Scott Harris was still asking for way too much at 4:30 and had to settle for less than he wanted? So it seems that Evan is probably had enough now. And that's what happens when you treat certain people who write about you a certain way. Eventually they will no longer hold back how they really feel. So we'll see what happens down the next couple months and the next couple of years with Scott Harris.
Well, look, we all know what happened to Anthony Fennick. So the free writers, but here, this is for Evan.
You did it. You crazy son of a bitch, you did.
Yeah.
So, anyway, let's watch a little bit more. I don't want to watch the whole thing, but just let's see if we can speed through this.
Do you believe next year, since you don't want to
This is Jeff Rieger asking about next year.
More active in free agency and so-called go for it next season, do you think, timeline-wise?
Yeah, it's July right now. We got a lot of work to do this year. We have a really important second half.
Let's rewind it for a second.
Those 2 years, would you guys be more active in free agency and so-called go for it next season, do you think, timeline-wise?
Yeah, it's July right now. We got a lot of work to do this year. We have a
for one more day,
important second half for this team, both to continue to demonstrate that we can play competitive baseball for long stretches of time on this field. And we have a lot of young players in the big leagues who need to get a whole lot better. I think you guys are seeing some flashes of it. I think when you see some of these players, what they look like in April and now what they look like in July, like it's a good example of what we can be as an organization, but we can't just start looking into the winter right now. Like we have a lot of work to do in August and September to make sure that the players on this team and the players that are going to impact this team in the second half are coming up and getting better. So that's where our focus is right now. We can tackle those questions later on.
Just one more about Skubal. Was it ever tempting to trade Skubal, considering the offers you might get?
I can't really comment on that. Yeah.
How do you feel about the market for starting pitchers as a whole, and considering the fact that Jack is probably the best parental starter out there, do you feel like you kind of beat the other returns out there?
Yeah, I mean, I think a few observations from this market. Every market is different. I know we like to compare trades from certain years to previous years. Every market is different. This market was interesting because I think there were a few starters out there that were kind of holding up the market for a few, controllable starters who were generating a lot of attention. Generally, the players with less control are a little bit less appealing because you're only trading for 2 months of the player. And in Jack's case, he'll be a free agent at the end of the year. So I think there were a few market forces that were, affecting the frequency of calls at different parts based on, what the more controllable starters were doing. I think the other thing that you notice when you step back and look at the market is there were very few really high-end young prospects that were moved. I don't know how many in the top 100, and I don't know which ranking system you want to use, but very few moved, which I think is a reflection of, how hard it is to make prospect trades and to, acquire young talent. I think the other thing I would say is we really don't get caught up in prospect rankings. We have a lot of scouts and analysts and coaches and front office staff who do a lot of work on these.
And that's accurate. You can based off some of the, like, for example, how you Lee is a prime example of that he wasn't on any prospects list at all. So on that, and same thing. So yeah, a lot to basically there's a couple things to take away from that. I'm gonna end up clipping this up at some point. I'll put it on the website soon. But basically, is this he's saying that they're going to develop players. As far as spending goes, he sidestepped that. He sidestepped it like Barry Sanders did out of the open backfield. I mean, he did like a 1-2 dance. I mean, I'm not going to do his move there. That's what I'm saying. Like, basically, he's just saying, guys, look, I got the impression that they're just. I mean, he's again August, September. What can you glean from that? Not much. I mean, the minor league season's what, over in a month? Am I imagining that?
Yeah, about 6 weeks, I think.
Yeah,
guys, I gotta go. I'm sorry, but I'm sure we'll talk more about this on Thursday. But yeah, sorry to leave early. My son's gotta do something real quick. See ya.
All right. See you.
So it's interesting, early in that bit, he was talking about how the veterans were crucial for developing the young guys, and then when he's answering the question about signing free agents, he was like, we need to get those young guys in there, develop them. So he's a little bit contradicting himself slightly. But it's just a matter of, are they going to try to pass off next year by going with 3 or 4 one-year deals with veterans who have some serious weaknesses that they hope they can rehabilitate and trade them? It seems to me that's probably going to be his MO again this winter versus going out for top-ranked free agents.
Yeah. Mike, what are you going to say?
I mean, yeah, I kind of warned everybody during our MLB draft show when I felt like the way that Harris drafted kind of gave you an indication of how he felt where the team was in the first place. He didn't draft guys that in the era of this year was the year of the prep hitter. He took what, 7 prep pitchers in the first 10, 11 rounds. Like, what I think he was telling you, I think maybe people should have been a bit more prepared for this after that, but he made it clear how he felt. He made it clear that he didn't think this team was even close, and he's not going to worry about the when. He's going to worry about what kinds of players he's getting. He's not going to worry when they're getting to the big leagues. I'm not saying it's right.
Right.
Like, I don't want anybody to come at me and just be like, that's what I wanted. I'm just saying that that's what he made clear. I think that this furthers it.
Let's say you're right, Mike. Let's say you're right. Everything you just said is 100% on the line right. Okay. Who lets him do that? Who could overrule that if they wanted to?
But I mean, they were a 500 baseball team this year. They got
Chris Ilitch, if that is his mindset, that is approved by Chris Ilitch, right? I mean, Chris Ilitch could step in tomorrow and say, no, we're going a different route. We're going to bring in premium free agents and we're going to win starting in 2025. And that's how it's going to be.
I could win the lottery tomorrow.
He's leaning toward Harris.
I win the lottery tomorrow. We're talking about completely hypothetical things that are definitely not going to happen. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be rude, but I just don't buy into that at all. If you are a good GM, you hire somebody to do that. That's why he hired Scott Harris. You don't hire a dude and then overrule him. That's what happened in the Pistons. And look, the Pistons are the worst franchise in probably all 4 sports. So I don't think that's why you hire a guy like that.
Well, but all I'm saying is this: if they are going down one road and the fans don't like it and they are, pummeling Scott Harris, it's just a fact. The way he's doing it right now is being supported by Chris Ilitch because he could step in and make a change, and he's not. And that's okay. I don't have a big problem building through the draft and what's going on. I'm a very patient fan, and I can see what they're trying to do. And I know that free agency has landmines everywhere. I trust me, I get that. But at the same time, there's no reason why there can't be a mixture of all avenues of building a team. And Detroit has, for the most part, avoided some of the more costly ones. And that's partially on the owner. It has to be. It's his team.
So here's the thing, and we'll leave it at that. We'll leave it with this, though. I think YouTube user said it best, and I'm gonna shut off the comments for a second because I want to focus on what I'm gonna say here. There's a part of me that thinks that the Tiger fans are getting the shaft a little bit. They're absolutely getting the shaft because it's basically they're saying is, look, we know that we have our plan. This is our plan. We're going to stick to this. And that's fine. But then you look at the Kansas City Royals, who were very active today. A year ago, they were, I think,
106. Lost 106.
106 games. And now they're contending for a wild card, possibly even more right now. That is why fans have every right to be pissed as they are. Personally, I'm just going to wait till it's off season, see what he does. If he doesn't do anything in the off season, then I'm trying not to be apathetic about the whole thing, but you want to see, again, there's certain things that you can see in the development machine that are working, and I cannot deny that. However, what is frustrating to any fans when you go down to Comerica Park and you see a 4A lineup, and you're trading Marcana. You got some from Marcana, okay? I'm not disputing that, okay? But you're basically telling people, well, the Lions have just started, and so you guys don't really care anyway. And that's why, I mean, this team is built for the future anyways. So again, but the fans, every fan down there is going to go, why am I going to go see, you can go see Cole Keith. That's cool. There's a couple, but then Riley Green's hurt. The offense scored what? In 2 innings in the last 20-something odd innings? That's the problem I have, is when you go down there, you want to see competitive. The Tigers are 4 games under 500. Granted, and AJ Hinch has done a miracle with that. But at the same time, now what? You go into the next couple months, and you'd rather – I know the Tigers end under the season. If the Tigers not going to go over 500, at least hover around 500, that's fine. But you also might have the opposite thing where it's just going to go like a plane crash. it's just going to be a long August. They call it the dog days of summer, August, for a reason.
Mhm.
August is extremely like just school, all these things that, the people suck. And anyway, again, I understand why fans are frustrated, and I trust the development machine. It's when Harris is kind of like being condescending a little bit to people, and they're getting that vibe, and your beat writer and your beat writer, that's the thing right there, is a telling sign right there. He doesn't have to please the beat writers, I understand it, but at the same time, like, these guys they're carrying the message for your team, and you're basically telling those guys to F off, essentially.
Another thing that they did today in these 4 trades here at the deadline, people forget about for a team that's struggling and whatever Illich wants to do with his team. They must have probably cut what, $7, $8, $9 million of payroll by sending these 4 guys out. What's left on their contracts, so they already came into this season with a low payroll, and they just hacked off a chunk of it today.
See, I don't like what Tyler saying there. We're 4 games under 500, and the deadline has me feeling like we're 20 under. You either go all out or you go all out one way or the other. I think half-assing one way or the other is the worst thing you can do.
I think what he means.
Go ahead.
I
was just going to say, imagine if they only traded Mark Canha or only traded Jack Flaherty. I'd be pissed right now.
I think he probably meant to me by the sentiment of everybody right now. And Walter, let me say this. I'm excited about Cole Keefe. It's not that I'm saying I'm not. As a fan, I'm talking about going, like, as a fan, if you're going down there to see Cole Keefe, that's cool. No, what I'm saying is you have to be disappointed as a fan that there is reasons why to go down there. I'm not disputing that. But at the same time, you're also, as somebody, as a fan who's going to go down there, who maybe just a casual fan, and they want to watch the team. Riley Green's hurt. You watch Cole Keefe. There's a couple things to watch for. Jackson Job's not even up here. My point is, for the average fan who goes in and day out, it's frustrating, or even for like a casual fan.
I mean,
you know what I mean, Mike? I think you're trying to. I know it's coming across as I'm disappointed. I understand the whole process.
Yeah,
I might not like it, but at the same time, there are some things that, like I said, the progress in the minor league system over the last 3 years has been more than I've ever seen in the last 20 years.
But that doesn't get seats in the stadium. I get you. That doesn't get people to buy it. You're right, and I'm looking at it as more of a baseball nerd. Like, I'm a little excited to see who they call up and who's going to get a shot, and it'll be fun. But you're right. As a fan, it's just, this is unfortunately what happens when a rebuild goes wrong. Like, the rebuild started 10 years ago now, 9 years ago. I mean, they didn't really tear down. They kind of half-assed it, but this is what happens when rebuilds don't work. We're seeing it happen all over our city right now. Look what happened to the Pistons. They had a plan. It didn't work. When your rebuild plan doesn't work, it sets you back even farther. I understand the frustration. I'm not trying to say that people shouldn't be disappointed with the product on the field. I hope I'm not coming across that way. It's just, this team was a 500, maybe a couple games over 500 baseball team. That's what they were going to be this year. People who wanted, we were going to fight for a wild card. That's not why you buy at the deadline. You don't buy at the deadline to fight for the wild card. I don't know. I feel like maybe I'm straw man and I'm fighting people that aren't really there, but I guess I understand people's frustration, but unfortunately you pay the price when people like Al Avila make several mistakes. And I mean, hey, at least the Dodgers trade went through this year, man. Like,
no, and you know what? And I will say this: Dan is right. The closest they've been in 9 years, buying would feel good for once. But there's something that Steven again has brought up a good point, and this is something I witnessed firsthand. Daniel Cabrera, for example, has pretty much he's out of the. I mean, if you wonder why I haven't heard from Daniel Cabrera, he's pretty much gone.
Yeah,
the Tigers. I mean, if you look at the massive amount of like something, and this is not an excuse. Again, this is not an excuse. But the one thing we've talked about this, there's a couple things that factor in. We talked about this before. Kyle Montero, for example, didn't get Spanish instructions until Ryan Garco came in. Simple instructions. Well, this is something else, but simple instructions on pitching Little things like that. Like they got new facilities, these little things. And again, these things make a big difference in the minor leagues. They're able to add pitches like Lyle Lockhart, who's probably going to be in the rotation. Brent, all these guys are getting pitches that have been getting developed. This is something the Tigers have never done. Never. I mean, you look at here's the thing. This is the reason why the Tigers have been able to compete this year. The guys like Brisky, Foley, all those, the Tigers have never been able to do that on a consistent basis. Tell me a time. Let me know. I'll wait. So in terms of that, there's things to be optimistic for.
Sure.
But you're right. It's funny because Warband Gamer says fans don't care about the farms, like nerds like farm.
Yeah, he's
like,
right. And
yeah,
that's
he's
kind
right.
of, it's hard to not look through that lens sometimes. So I appreciate the comment section for bringing me back down to earth.
Yeah.
I do look at things through a huge nerd lens. So I got a little heated through that lens. So I apologize. But I know this isn't sexy now, but this is easily the most potential the Tigers have ever had in their, well, I can't say ever, but in a really long time, like Roger said.
Yeah.
Raj, tell me this. Last year, when this team kind of finished okay, I mean, they kept things afloat toward the end of the season. A big part of that was Sawyer Gibson-Long coming up and throwing well. Is Lyle Lockhart at a skill level? I mean, I realize they're different pitchers, but is he at a skill level where he could come up and give 6 to 8 decent starts for them to get them through to the finish line here?
Who was that? I'm sorry.
Lockhart.
Yeah. Here's the thing, and Tigers Jet UK, welcome to the chat. By the way, I haven't seen him in a while. We haven't talked in a while. Yes, I agree. Exactly. Torque and Carp, it's a different story. The depth, the system has no depth right now. John, I agree with you. We've been adamant about that. The system's depth is terrible. It's absolutely terrible. I've said that over and over again. Here's the thing. That's right. Non-nerds watch the show all the time. It is the reason why, I mean, Al's guys have, this is the reason why they have no depth right now. You look at low A, you look at high, look at like West Michigan right now. A lot of those are starting to become like with the Max Clark, some of the other pitchers they're phasing out. You look at Double A and Triple A, those are a lot of Avilo guys, a lot of them. And Erie right now is a veteran roster, and Gabe Alvarez is doing a miracle. Like Gabe Alvarez is, it's a veteran team right now. And that's all it is to it. And they are going to keep winning. And Gabe Alvarez does the little things like that. They run, they do little things like that. Anyway, it's the biggest thing is right now is if you're seeing players develop like they have, look at Lockhart when he was with the Dodgers, was a pitcher with a ERA over 5. They gave him a splitter. Same thing with Sawyer Gibson-Long. I can go on and on examples, and same thing with Jackson Jobe. Jackson Jobe, a year and a half ago, was considered a failure, and there was casual Tiger fans like, "Oh, look at his numbers," and before his injuries, and then here we go. But I just want to end the podcast. I want to thank, by the way, I didn't get a chance to do this yesterday. So waiting on Trey Cruz, baby. The Erie Seawolves had a ring night. They had like a championship ring night, and they saved a ring for myself and Chris. And look at this thing. I want to show everybody this ring. It is literally, it's like, if you knock on it, hold on. That thing is heavy. This thing is a heavy son of a bitch.
That's awesome.
And Greg, the announcer of the Seawolves, his literally takes up 2 of my fingers. Like you could put it like it's that big. So this is a replica. And anyways, I want to give a thanks to Erie for setting one aside for Chris and I, and it has little championship things that are on there. So thank you.
Cool.
Normally I don't brag about those things, but it was I'm sorry, that's really cool.
Oh, that's way cool. Are you kidding me? That's awesome.
Okay. All right, go ahead, Gooper.
All right, here's see if you can figure out. It should be pretty easy. Theron Lorenzo. Tell me who you think he's a catcher, first baseman, exceptionally slow, switch hitter with a little power. Who did I just describe?
Alex Avila? No, not sure.
Oh.
No, because he was a left-handed hitter. No.
Talking about Victor Martinez.
There you go. They just
Yeah,
got the
Victor
next V-Mark,
Martinez.
baby.
Yeah.
That's how we got to. That's how we got to view this.
I miss peak VMart, man. Oh, peak
Yeah.
VMart was amazing. Right behind Miggy. That was
Mickey
a
Telton.
point.
This
We
guy
can
is
tell.
little V-Mart until he proves differently.
No, by the way, the Tigers do the Tigers have the longest streak of under 500 seasons? No, not by a long shot.
No.
This is not the worst. This is why, like, maybe perspective comes in. The worst stretch of Tigers baseball was probably, I mean, we're talking about 90. I mean, there's years of fertility, like 10, 12 years of that. But real quick before I forget somebody asked about Ty Man, Skater Boy. No, Tigers don't need Ty Man right now. He's been wildly inconsistent. I want to show you how wildly inconsistent he's been. Let me present to you his numbers from last week as I'm trying to find the slides that we did earlier this week. So 2 starts, 8 innings, 17 hits, 11 runs. This is from yesterday's show. 17 hits, 11 runs, 3 walks, 9 strikeouts, and 3 home runs.
Only 3 home runs with 11.
He's struggling mightily right now.
Yeah.
So not right now. He needs a little bit of work, my friend. Navagato, look at Navagato. Navagato's doing some things. By the way, if you our slideshow's up on every Sunday. Every Sunday we do a slideshow. We have we go through all the stats throughout the minor leagues, and that's on yesterday. So, but yeah, so yeah, there we go. Any last thoughts, gentlemen, before we get out of here?
No, I just think that again, the one big talent that could have turned the franchise around with the trade would have been Skubal. They elected not to go that route, and I think that's a totally legitimate way to go. They still have him for 2 more years, and a lot of good things can happen, both trade-wise and on the field.
Yeah,
I
we'll see here.
I think
But,
that keeping Skubal's the right move. I know everybody's saying if he doesn't plan on fielding a team in 2 years worth fielding around him, then what's the point? We'll see where they're the way I'm seeing it is we'll see where they're at in 2 years. That's how he's looking at it.
Yeah.
If these guys, a couple of these guys hit and they look okay, then they're gonna go for extending him. I realize he's a Scott Boras client, but that's what they're gonna try to do. Otherwise, he's not going to have the max value right now necessarily. He could have as much value in the end of this year, in the off season. I don't think his value's topped out, so I think it could be okay anyway.
As far as and then the last question, as far as when the new guys will report, probably within the next couple of days. So I know Owens and Hicks will report to Toledo. We'll find out. I think it was mentioned that Sweeney will report to Toledo, and I'm assuming based off I think the other pitcher, the right-handed pitcher they got from Texas will report there as well. So we'll see. The Scott Harris, like and Keith, we mentioned this earlier, and then we got to get out of here because I've been working. I have not moved from this desk since 9:00 this morning, outside of eating, maybe just for a second. Keith, to answer your question real quick, yes, we talked about this yesterday with Casey Mize. There is a disconnect between the front office and some of the players and how they handle it a little bit, and you could see it on the way they made the comments for sure. So.
I mean, I don't think Flaherty's too upset because whether he liked the front office or not, the team just got him a fat check in the offseason. So I don't think Flaherty hates Tigers that much.
No. He's like, thank you very much. That's going to go on my escrow account. So we'll be back on Thursday. Yeah, you're welcome, Tyler. Like I said, sometimes you have to – we try to, be as level-headed as possible. There's a lot of anger, and I understand why people are mad. I used to make fun of people for being mad. In reality, anger is a natural thing. There's no reason for me to be a gatekeeper about how you feel. If you feel a certain way, you feel a certain way. And I'm glad that we're able to have these conversations and have a discourse, because I think, to me, having a back and forth conversation, you learn about what people like and what people don't like. And that's what I hate about social media sometimes. In Twitter, especially, people just yell at each other all the time instead of just having a conversation. You might feel one way about it, but I'm not going to sit there and go, well, you're an idiot. Okay.
Yeah.
So you're entitled to your opinion, and I'm wrong, and we're all, right or wrong. So But anyways, gentlemen, have a good night, everybody. We'll see you Thursday. We'll probably have more of an idea of where everybody will be. So thank you for tuning in to the crossover thing. I mean, at one point I want to merge the channels together someday. Maybe it might be more easier that way. But until then, have a good night, everybody.
Good night.